Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and welcome to the Great League Remix Cup. This is a 1500 combat power format where the 20 most used Pokemon this season in Ace Elo and above have been banned, and I have the bans listed on screen now. And in this Great League Remix Cup meta, the combination of Pangoro plus Grumpig is absolutely destroying teams. I ran this team for quite a few sets on stream, and every single set went positive. For the third Pokemon, I used Galarian Corsola as the third to give the team some much needed bulk. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches. And we're off to a very tough start in game number 1, leading Pangoro into Shadow Dragonite. I'm going to save switch into Grumpig. Opponent is going to respond with Jellicent. The nice thing here is Grumpig has Shadow Ball, so my opponent will have to respect this, because if they do not, Grumpig is so effortlessly flipping switch advantage. Grumpig is going to be committing the shield, respecting the Shadow Ball. It's a surf bait. Opponent does not get to a second surf, and just like that, switch advantage has been won. I farm up past the Shadow Ball with the Grumpig, firing off Dynamic Punch. Dynamic Punch is going to be shielded. My opponent looking for a farm down, but Grumpig, too spammy, able to make a second Dynamic Punch. And just like that, Grumpig got both shields and KO'd 1.5 Pokemon just on its own. In comes Galarian Corsola. I have an atrocious IV Galarian Corsola. I just could never trade for a better one. But on this team, it still adds some nice bulk, as I can survive 2 Dragon Claws. In the back is Ferrothorn, and this is such an easy game. I can just no shield, farm up to a close combat, plus a Night Slash, and the game is over. Opponent Mirror Shot baits, fishing for a debuff, but they know it's over, and they're going to resign the match. Picking up a negative lead in game number 2, Pangoro into Primeape. The safe switch to Grumpig is going to be answered with a Dusclops. Now, Dusclops is a ghost type that's actually bulky enough that it can survive a Shadow Ball. So Dusclops does not actually have to shield in this matchup. But the good news is they also can't farm down. So they will be forced to fire off energy. That does huge damage to the Dusclops. They're forced to throw energy, and I'm more than happy to send in the Pangoro now, as Pangoro should get a very nice farm down. Unfortunately, I lagged by a turn on entry, and that causes my opponent to actually make an Ice Punch that they should not have reached. Back in comes the Primeape. I am going to be baiting with the Night Slash here. I do have enough for the close combat. That's going to get a shield. In comes Galarian Corsola. Future Rage Fist will obviously do more, so I am going to let this through. In the back, it's Shadow Dusknoir, and this is on Hex. And you can see right off the bat the difference here. Astonish from the Corsola does a ton of damage. So I am just going to be able to double shield, farm all the way down, and this Primeape is about to get completely overrun with these Nightshades on Corsola. In comes the Primeape. I'm just going to be under tapping here. I know that I need to get this damage off as soon as I possibly can, so I will throw both these moves back to back. Now, this Nightshade is going to put the Primeape extremely low. Primeape is going to throw on 2, so that second Astonish does not land. I am very close to a move on the Pangoro here, so I get to send in Pangoro. Pangoro is going to make the Night Slash, and that's going to secure the game, as Night Slash is going to be knocking out that Primeape. We move to game number 3, Pangoro against Shadow Quagsire. Now, I can survive any one move from the Quagsire, but a Shadow Aqua Tail would do a ton of damage, so I will decide to commit a shield in this matchup. My opponent is going to go for the Aqua Tail, and now I farm up to a Night Slash plus a close combat, and I will full send here. I want to guarantee a shield or swap. Opponent calls the bait and gets KO'd. They're going to send in Primeape. There's the pivot out into Grumpig. Grumpig baits out Furret, and this is exactly why Grumpig is the safe switch on this team. Grumpig's job is to try and lure out any potential Darks or Normals, and then be able to effectively punish them with Dynamic Punch. Furret goes for the Trailblaze here, looking for a farm down, and they do get the farm down, denying that Dynamic Punch. But I can send back in Pangoro. Pangoro close combat launched at the Furret on the CMP tide. There's a shield from the Furret, and I will get knocked out here, so I am forced to shield back. I'm expecting a switch. There's the switch into the Primeape, and Corsola hits the field. Corsola, I have a pretty bad IV on, but even a bad IV, it looks like, can still survive 2 Rage Fists here, because this is the regular Primeape, not the Shadow. The way I lose this game is by giving the Furret too much farm. So I need to get my Corsola as low as possible. I'm going to undercharge, leave them at 1 HP, take an extra double boosted Karate Chop. That limits the Sucker Punches they get to 2 instead of 3. And that is the exact play we had to do to win. If they leave with 3 Sucker Punches residual, they outpace and win the game. But with a frame perfect undercharge, we're able to claw back and secure victory. We move to the next match, picking up a pretty solid lead, Pangoro against Dusknoir. Opponent safe switches into Shadow Primeape, and we have a great response available with the Grumpig. Grumpig is, of course, going to be the hard counter for a Pokemon like Primeape, since Psywave will absolutely shred through this Pokemon. I don't want to go down a shield, so I'm going to fire off the Dynamic Punch, but the moment my opponent makes a play for Switch, I'm always going to let it go, because between Pangoro and Galarian Corsola, it's not like their Dusknoir is going to find any good matchups. So now I have a Corsola up energy in the back. It's a Furret, so they are just running ABA weak to Pangoro, and Pangoro is about to sweep. Pangoro with a switch into the Furret. Furret will fire off energy. I am going to commit the shield here, as they do go for the Swift, because I do want to incentivize the Dusknoir to actually have to throw Dynamic Punches instead of being able to spam out Shadow Punches. Night Slash into the Dusknoir, that is some pretty significant damage. I get to fire off another Night Slash, and Dusknoir will commit another shield. Dusknoir, this one is on Astonish. They are going to be firing off energy. It is going to be the Shadow Punch bait, and here I throw 2 and the move. Not only will this Astonish not register, but it leaves me with 1 in reserve. This is important because Furret had 1 residual Sucker Punch, and because we overfarmed, we win the CMP tie. I love playing glassy Pokemon that win CMP. Down goes Furret, and that's a good game. We see a very bad lead in the next match, Pangoro against Toxipex. I think Pangoro's energy can be valuable against their backline, so I will bank a close combat and then switch out into Grumpig. Grumpig, I decide to no shield here as they are going to fire off a Sludge Wave. Sludge Wave will inflict some pretty massive damage, and out comes Quagsire. Quagsire will be hit with the Dynamic Punch, and now I have a bit of a choice to make. A lot of the time, Toxipex is paired with Diggersby. If I think it's Diggersby, I have to try and sell out for switch advantage. In this instance, I actually decide to let it go. I just can't quite make the Dynamic Punch, and I bring back in the Pangoro. They are going to be firing off an Aqua Tail, but this is not the Shadow, so I can survive it a lot better. And now I will overfarm close to 100 energy and then go for the Night Slash. Night Slash is going to KO. In comes Galarian Corsola in the back. Thank goodness it's not Diggersby. If it was Diggersby, that'd be game over on the spot, but it's Dugong. And Dugong is a Pokemon that Corsola does have quite a bit of play into. On top of that, I have a bunch of stored energy on Pangoro from earlier in the match. Icy Wind is going to end up connecting onto the Corsola. Corsola is going to win the CMP tie. This is strictly because I have a terrible IV Corsola. A high-rank Corsola will actually lose the CMP tie. And now that they've committed both shields, I just have to overfarm and then go for the combo. So I throw 3, switch back into the Pangoro. Close combat is going to connect, picking up the knockout on a Dugong. Back in comes the Toxipex, but I get another close combat. It's resisted damage, but it hits harder than a Night Slash. Close combat connects, and now, with a shield to hide behind, Galarian Corsola will be able to close out this game. In the moment, I didn't realize that Nightshade and Power Gem do the exact same damage when neutral, so I went for the Power Gem thinking it does slightly more. This is not something I needed to do. Nightshade will do the exact same damage, but the good news is we're able to get the win. Pangoro leading into a Skeledirge in the next match. Skeledirge a bit of an interesting pick. Skeledirge is going to get pretty severely outpaced in this matchup. Pangoro firing off the Night Slash and Skeledirge with an immediate no shield. I can inflict a lot of damage with these Night Slashes, but the uncomfortable aspect of this lead is I have no fast move pressure. They're going to Torch Song on 100, so I actually do something that I never recommend doing, which is I make a catch onto Corsola, because this way, I sneak through and Astonish, and I am immediately met with a Greninja, and this is really bad. Greninja is not what I'm hoping to see aligned onto the Corsola, and ideally, I would definitely prefer if it was the Grumpig, because Grumpig at the very least has Dynamic Punch, whereas Corsola is just getting fully farmed down. In comes Pangoro. I'm so low on health. Opponent just going to undertap the move here because they would not survive 2 Karate Chops, and I will get a farm down. In the back, oh, it's a Shadow Pidgeot, and this game is just over. I, unfortunately, once they shield this, don't have a way to win. because my opponent has a Shadow Ball loaded on the Skeledirge. So how they win this game is very, very simple. They just have to full send on the Pidgeot. As long as they click Brave Bird on Pidgeot, they win, because I can't shield 2 nukes. I only have 1 shield, so I call it, hoping they make a mistake, but they do not, and I will lose the game. We move to the next match, bad lead, Pangoro into a regular Dragonite, and here's where I learned that I think regular Dragonite gets a bulk point against Psywave from Grumpig, because in the matchup against the Shadow, the Psywaves pretty much are doing the same damage that the Dragon Breaths are doing, but in this particular instance, it looks like the regular Dragonite is actually doing a lot better. They send out, that's not a Tinkaton, that is a Tink-a-Tink. That is the middle stage evolution, all the way maxed at level 50. They are a crazy XL grinder. They must have been hatching those eggs like nobody's business. Player up will pick up the KO. I can send in Pangoro. Pangoro is largely very fine against both Tinkaton and Tinkatuff because close combat just inflicts so much damage. I believe I show a Tinkaton lead later in this video, and I just close combat and it does like 3/4 of their health. Here, I'm able to grab a shield, send in the Corsola, and for Corsola, I'm very comfortable tanking this and farming down. I'm expecting a switch out here. The opponent stays in. They're trying to make another move, but they're not going to get there. They lose the Dragonite in the back. It's going to be Tinkaton. So they're running an ABB team where neither one of their back Pokemon have a lot of flexibility, but we should still be completely in the driver's seat of this match. Nightshade number 2 is going to land. And look at this. Their whole Tinkaton has basically been entirely removed from the field of play. Bulldoze will pick up the knockout, but I can just send in Pangoro. We're going for the full Karate Chop farm down. They're preying on Bulldoze debuffs, but even that will not save them. Pangoro gets debuffed, Karate Chops down the Fairy type, and we take the win. Picking up a pretty nice lead in the next match, Pangoro against Claydol. I believe this is an opponent that I actually played earlier in this video, but since these battles took place on the leaderboards, you will often play the same people multiple times in one day. My opponent is going to undertap, which is the correct play, because if they try and go for good timing, then I can force a first shielding decision of the match. I will go for the now debuffed Night Slash. Night Slash is going to connect, switch into Grumpig, look for the Psywave down. There's a pivot out into Furret, and Furret is an amazing Pokemon to bait out here, as Furret, of course, would be a huge problem for Galarian Corsola. That matchup is so bad that Galarian Corsola, down a shield, actually still loses to Furret. Dynamic Punch into Furret does massive damage, and Grumpig flips switch advantage. Let's go, Grumpig. Back in comes the Claydol. Maybe I could have Dynamic Punched here, but I full send the Shadow Ball just to guarantee the knockout. In the back, oh, that's bad. It's Pangoro, and here I make a fatal error. I wasn't counting, I just shield. That was the Night Slash. I could have survived that. Just a huge mental error from me. I had kind of given up when I saw the Pangoro because I knew how bad of a matchup Galarian Corsola has into it. But the thing is, Galarian Corsola, it survives 2 Night Slashes. So somehow I'm still not out of it. It would obviously be so much easier if I still had a shield, but this move will not knock out. So maybe if I can make a catch happen, pause the turn, but they end up getting a boost so they can just Karate Chop down. But honestly, I deserve that loss for shielding a Night Slash on a Pangoro. We move to the next match, and this is the match I was talking about earlier. Pangoro versus Tinkaton. Tinkaton gets outpaced here. They can make a Bulldoze on the close combat, but a Pangoro is never respecting a Bulldoze. Close combat does 3/4 of their health. It's a simultaneous switch in. We send in Grumpig, and they send in Astonish Amoonguss. We are both hitting each other for super effective damage here. I'm farming up with the Grumpig. Here, I should have farmed up and thrown on 8 Psywaves instead of 11 because I do end up going to 100 energy. They're going to shield, undertap the foul play, and now, how much do I trust Grumpig? Can we get the Psywave down here? Astonish is tearing through the Grumpig. We get the farm down. Let's go, Grumpig. I have 2 Dynamic Punches, so I'm hitting hard on whatever they send in. And oh no, they sent in a Furret. Dynamic Punch is shielded, but I have another Dynamic Punch. This Grumpig is terrorizing this opponent. They lose their entire Furret. In comes the Tinkaton, but I'm not going to let him snipe. We get the catch onto Galarian Corsola, and Galarian Corsola is just too bulky. We are committing to a full farm down, and that's going to be game over for my opponent, as now Galarian Corsola gets to do the impossible against probably its hardest counter in the format that's not named Diggersby. We get to Astonish down and take the win. Hopping into the final match, and it's one final Shadow Dragonite lead for the road. We're going to save switch into the Grumpig. Opponent is going to stay in, but look at the difference here. If you're going up against the Shadow Dragonite, your Psywaves just absolutely shred them. Now we are going to see a switch to the Galarian Corsola. Galarian Corsola will have to throw energy here, otherwise I can get the shield back. So Shadow Ball is going to land. I'm expecting them to throw, but they actually don't throw. I'm hoping that the next Astonish knocks me out. That would honestly work out very nicely for me in terms of limiting farm, but I survive on very low HP. They exit with 8 Astonishes of energy, and that is a bit unfortunate. I send back in the Pangoro. Pangoro is just going to be a damage sponge here as Corsola makes it to more and more Nightshades. Nightshade number 2 is going to connect. There's the switch into Tinkaton as their final Pokemon, and let's go for that close combat. That rocks the Tinkaton. Now I can just send in the Galarian Corsola, and I'm just going to fully farm down. I think it's unlikely they bait here since they can get the 2 play roughs anyway, so I will commit the shield. And now I'm just going to fully farm down, and I just have to make sure that my opponent does not get the catch. As of late, when I've been battling, I know that my opponents will try for the catch. So I've just been not throwing the winning move because I know at some point they'll attempt to catch, but if I never throw it, they're never going to get the catch. So I'm just going to overfarm here. They try for the catch, but they are unsuccessful, and my opponent is going to concede the match. All in all, this team worked amazingly for me today. As I mentioned, I went positive every single set that I used it. I did try another team for a little bit. I believe I went 2-4 with that other team. I was trying out Metacham and it wasn't working as well as I had hoped, but my goodness. I started off the final set 0-1 and I still ended up going positive. So I went 3-1 in the final set. I think I went like 13-6 overall with this team on stream. So this team worked amazingly well. Grumpig and Pangoro feel like absolute powerhouses in this format. Grumpig just offers insanely flexible play due to its charge moves having that same just unwallable coverage of Ghost plus Fighting. It's the same coverage that made Annihilate so strong and Dustoir also so strong in this format. Obviously, Annihilate, Open Great League, it's not allowed in this format, but that Ghost plus Fighting coverage is just so good as a safe swap. I think until people start bringing out the dark flyers like Bombardier or Galarian Moltres, Grumpig is going to remain just an insanely good safe swap because it just has coverage moves for most anything that could get switched into it. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoy watching content like this, please do consider leaving a like on the video and subscribing to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is genuinely so appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.